Hello, Internet, and welcome to I won't call it a review, just more like a little discussion video on the Detective Pikachu movie. We're joined by AJ of Souling
Hola.
fame.
Hello. I'm here on Facecam, not in Soling.
Yeah.
The first time in foreign, but copyright
And
strike.
new. Yes, please no. Please, Disney, don't do it. Alright, so, I finally saw Detective Pikachu earlier today. I mean, depending on when I upload this. I saw it on the most recent Sunday before this gets uploaded. And
I saw it pretty sure 2 days ago was today, Sunday.
Alright. And
I
so
saw 2 days ago.
we had a couple things we wanted to talk about with it. So I guess, although I'm not planning on like going down the entire thing in the movie, what happened in it, I'll put a spoiler warning. Not necessarily going out to spoil the entire movie, but we're also not gonna withhold anything necessarily. So if you don't want to be spoiled, then watch the movie first, then come back. And also, I'm tired, so we're gonna try to keep this not so rambly. The only problem is when I'm tired, I ramble more. But we're gonna do. I'm gonna lay out my thoughts, kind of give an overview of my thoughts. Then AJ's gonna give some of his thoughts. Then we might share a little bit of what we think could be in the future for Pokemon movies, live action and otherwise, in video game movies in general, maybe. Like, how could this affect future video game movies? But anyway, without getting ahead of ourselves, let's see, where should I start? I should start with my first impression of this movie when I first found out it was going to be a thing. Like, I remember seeing the first trailer, and the sort of realistic Pokemon designs were a little off-putting to me. Like, I was never one, like, when you see all the fan art of, like, realistic Pokemon designs, I was always the one who, like, never cared for those, because they were just a little, like, Pokemon are cartoony. But apparently, a fan artist was consulted for some of these designs, which I think is really cool when the fan community gets involved. But anyway, the designs kind of grew on me, and since I've seen, let's say, other live-action realistic adaptations of cartoonish video game characters, I can start to appreciate more how, for this movie, for Detective Pikachu, the team, however they worked on the designs, they really tried to keep the proportions of the Pokemon, the aspects of them that still make them cute and endearing, while making them fit in with a little bit more of a gritty and realistic looking world. So in retrospect, I can appreciate it a lot more. The second thing was with the marketing, because again, the first trailer I kind of thought, oh, they're just throwing in a bunch of snappy jokes to, like, oh, this is a smart remark here, we're gonna get the kids because they're gonna like that smart remark, we're gonna want to see this wise talking Pikachu and be, and there's not going to be much more to it. But even
Who's the best at wise remarks?
Yeah, exactly. But even the marketing kind of grew on me when I realized that, like, the obvious connection of Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool and as Detective Pikachu. But even though the two movies are totally different, to me they kind of followed a similar marketing strategy as far as, like, for instance, with Detective Pikachu, the leaked movie on YouTube, like, just things like that, and just the whole not taking itself too seriously thing.
Yeah.
And it kind of grew on me. I started thinking, like, I think they know what they're doing, and I think this is gonna work. And I have to say that, while, it's not an Oscar winner or anything, but it did what it needed to do. It was a fun movie. It had a heart to it. The humor was there, and you could kind of they got about as raunchy as you can get for PG. Where I think it's enough though that it goes over the heads of little kids who, they wouldn't get anything from it, but the older people in the audience can kind of get a chuckle here and there. And
Yeah, I went to see it with my brother, and my mom's like, I don't know, it looks a little too not entirely confirmed. I'm like, Mom, it's Nintendo. How bad could it be? When I was watching it, I'm like,
yeah, I mean,
really?
they pushed about as far as they could possibly push, I think, for Nintendo and Pokemon and the PG rating, but it wasn't. There are some PG movies that they try to push it like that in a way that is really tasteless, and I think here they balanced it all right. Like, you know, it was all right. It wasn't like too much of a like too many cringe moments or anything. It was more like, oh hey, they actually said that kind of a thing.
I think it was a smart move because I think they did that because they know, you know, the kids are into the newer Pokemon stuff, and then they got the nostalgic OG fans that are gonna come in and watch it.
Right. Well,
Which are older.
From everything down to, you know, in this story, you know, you're used to seeing Pokemon stories with the protagonists as kids, and here you have a young adult who's about in the age range of the first generation of Pokemon fans. And I mean, now a lot of that was kind of how it was in the game. I mean, I think Tim in the game is a little bit younger. He's in college, but basically around the same age. Which I want to talk about the game because I never did finish the game. But after seeing the movie kind of finished out where I thought the game was going, and it would be interesting to go back and play the game and see. Obviously, the story beats were kind of different as far as the game is, you know, a puzzle game. You go to all these different sites and you do things, and it was a lot more laid back in tone and a lot more actual detective investigating work. And this is a movie, so they made it more like movie pacing. They kept it to only a few locations, and there were some things that were the same in the story that were in a different order or similar in a story. Like, I think the thing with balloons in the parade was the balloon thing was in the game, but it was like an early mystery. So it would be interesting though to go back and see like alright, well, I guess into spoilers. But I won't totally spoil it, I guess. But like the reveal of why Pikachu, the reveal of why Pikachu can talk, like that was pretty much it was pretty much exactly what I thought it was going to be, even back when I was playing the game. However, I'm curious if the explanation for how it was possible and how it was done, like the logic behind it, I'm curious if that is the same in the game, as well as the motivation behind like the R chemical being used to make Pokemon go crazy. I'm curious if that motivation was the same or similar in the game, so I feel like I might want to go back and finish the game to find out.
Same. I mean, heavy spoiler right now. When the dad was revealed to be the Pikachu, that is how it is in the game, I'm pretty sure. According to my brother, who has played, I think he watched it, but he's seen the entire game, essentially. That's the same, but I'll go more into that when my turn.
Yeah, so, but yeah, to close it out, I think that, I think in general they did a good job with it, and even though we're talking spoilers, I don't want to give away too much. If you happen to be hanging out and haven't seen it, like, it's a good time. Like, there's not going to be anything totally mind-blowing, but it's pretty cool. They actually created, like, it feels like a lived-in world where it does feel like the Pokemon are a part of the world. And I think they did as walk the line, I think, as best as I could have expected them to, between keeping the Pokemon looking like themselves, but then also being like, yeah, this could exist in the real world. A couple of Pokemon, like Trico, had an obnoxiously large head, which you had to do to keep him proportionally looking like Trico, but he made him so big that it was a little bit weird. So I mean, a couple of them were strange, like the scale of some of them, but I think in general it was pretty believable. And so yeah, I mean, I'd say it was a good time. I think most people seem to be saying positive things about it. Like, again, it's not a masterpiece or whatever, but it's a good time. And as far as video game movies go, this might be a masterpiece. So
might be the best video game movie we've had so far.
I think so. And that's like I said, when I was first nervous going in, someone made the point, like, Nintendo and the Pokemon Company have really tight brand control, and it's true. So they wouldn't just hand over the project to anybody if they didn't know what they were doing with the purpose. And so I think they knew what they were doing, and I think it was a success. So I'll hand the floor over to AJ now.
Gracias.
To go over his thoughts.
You got like 5 things here.
All right.
So the first thing was accuracy / explanation. It was a 2-in-1 deal. Congratulations. I thought my expectation was, that I saw the trailers and I saw the Pokemon and I was like, I don't know, like they look kind of too CGI for me, you know what I mean? I wasn't sure about that. And then, the Sonic trailer dropped and we saw that design. I'm like,
that was exactly my thought. Like, we could have this or we could have that.
Yeah, I was like, oh boy. But I think it beat my expectation because I wasn't expecting much because it is a video game movie and those haven't had the best reputation. But I thought it was better than the doubt I was giving it, to be fair.
Well, one thing real quick I'll say about it being a video game movie, I think one thing that worked in this one's favor is, like, let's take the Sonic movie as an example, like, not to pick on it, and we don't really know what the plot is yet, but a lot of video game movies, or even, like, the Super Mario Brothers movie from the 90s, like, a lot of times when you get a video game movie, they take the concept of the video game, or, like, the franchise, and especially from older video games where there wasn't much of a story, and they just kind of had to make something up, or, like, with Sonic, where it doesn't seem like they're adapting a specific story from a specific game or anything. It's just like video game character in the world. And Detective Pikachu, which I think is good because it's a spin-off game, they can do this. They had more of a central story, and they could adapt the story. Obviously, from playing the game was very different from the movie, but they at least had a self-contained narrative to base it on, and I think that helped it a lot. So anyway, continue.
Yeah, they had a sort of baseline. They had something to work off of,
right?
Basically, when all the other game movies are like, well, this would be an interesting story to tell. That's not already a storyline,
right?
Like, okay. Accuracy. I thought it was fairly accurate. I wasn't sure, like, with the moves and stuff and how accurate it was going to be. And, like, because it's like, I was almost worried because Pokemon's very, it's a turn-based thing. So how would they handle fighting? And I thought they handled it kind of cool and, like, how I would expect. They handled it very anime-like. Like, there wasn't any, in the anime there's no turns. It's
right,
just
they
like,
had it more
do
real
this,
time.
do that, yeah, which I thought was...
The one thing that bothered me, was just a little nitpick, was that Psyduck's psychic powers seemed to affect the Greninja, but given all the times the anime have completely botched type matchups, I'm willing to let it slide because it looked more like he kind of set off a wave of energy. It wasn't really an attack.
The thing about that, I think it was Birdkeeper Toby that I was watching, and he was like, I think the Greninja might have been Protean, and so when they were using the water moves, they were just pure water.
That's true, and they were experimented on, so you never know how that affected them. So.
But yeah, I thought the accuracy of, like, the fighting is what I would expect, and, like, the moves were, like, accurate to how I would think they would look in the real world, considering they're, like, their effects, which I thought was cool.
Yeah.
Design-wise, for the Pokemon, I'm back and forth on it. I really like them, but at the same time, while I was watching the movie, I was like, I could tell that's CG, but at the same time, it looks really good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, I feel like it's one of those things where, in order to keep them looking like the Pokemon, they had to maintain some cartooniness.
I think it was worth the sacrifice though. Of like.
Yeah, I think I would rather lean more towards. They're obviously fake, but they look like Pokemon, rather than try to get too realistic.
Yeah, these look like the things I've grown up with.
Right.
For that, then Sonic.
Right. Again.
Pick on that movie some more. No.
The comparison. They obviously wanted to make the comparison, so there you go.
Yeah. I thought the city and like the other areas aside from the city and like the inside of the buildings looked really good. Honestly, I thought
the set design, if you want to call it that, because it's probably mostly generated, but I thought that like the sets and the landscapes and everything was really nice looking. Like it had a little bit of like a dark overall vibe, but the landscapes were pretty.
Yeah, it was I got a very steampunky kind of feel from it. But I think I heard that they shot most or some of the city scenes in London. I could be wrong.
That sounds familiar, actually.
I've heard that somewhere. I can't remember where.
So I think someone was trying to say that they thought there'd be a connection between like that and the Galar region or something like that.
Yeah, there was also like there was that like an image of that one giant long island, if you remember that.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, is that?
Galar
and
confirmed.
Name drop. Yeah, and then of course name dropping like Kanto. Yeah, I think the designs of the Pokemon and the city setting was fairly good and pulled off what they were trying to do. I think it was fine for what it was. Actors, I thought Tim. I'm pretty sure that's his name. Tim and Pikachu. Everyone was skeptical. It was like Danny DeVito Pikachu. I was like, Ryan Reynolds pulled it off. I think
he did what he had to do, and it worked. So
I thought he did fine in there.
Yeah.
I liked it. Tim's actor. I kind of like Tim's actor. I don't know who he is, but I thought he was good.
I thought he was pretty good. The actress that played Lucy.
Yeah.
When she was first introduced, compared to how Tim was playing and compared to how the other actors were, she was very like overdone. I mean, I get that was kind of the point. That was her personality. And it did grow on me as it went on. She kind of settled into her role, I think, as the movie went on. But she was a little less likable. I don't know if likable is the word.
I don't know. Forgettable? She was kind of forgettable at some points and at the end. Like she wasn't. But at the same time, she wasn't like a main focus character. So
I mean, I thought she ended up being pretty good. I wasn't sure. She ended up being pretty good. Maybe a little weaker than the main cast.
Yeah. I thought she was okay for what her character was, but she wasn't. I don't know. She just. I mean, I didn't hate her, but I just didn't like.
Well, she didn't necessarily.
Care much for her
she didn't necessarily bring anything new. I mean, she was the stereotypical aspiring journalist archetype, and she did it pretty well. Nothing special about it, but she did it. She did what she had to do.
I will say, I think if they didn't have her character, they could have found the stuff that she told them about pretty easily. Because I mean, detectives.
I mean, I guess it's because there's that character, that equivalent character in the game, and gives you another player character. If you're gonna be like in the games with a partner Pokemon, so you can see another main trainer, and
was that the only one that maybe thought, just maybe, she was maybe referencing Misty? Because she had kind of reddish hair and a Psyduck.
Yeah, I mean, they probably wanted to...
I mean...
The Psyduck was probably to reference Misty a little bit, or hint, like...
Yeah.
I think...
I mean...
they probably... And probably also, I was thinking they had to have her for, like, part of Tim's arc, not just getting closer, like, befriending Pikachu and reconnecting with his dad, but just the general, like, they really set up how he was kind of a loner. and it kind of given him, opportunity to open up to friends and have, rely on other people aside from just himself. So, I mean, I get that's probably another reason why she was there. I mean, they had a reporter character in the game, and, the classic female companion trope from the Pokemon anime, and then also the Tim needs to learn how to not be a loner.
Yeah. I did like the references of Ash and Pikachu and right on the shoulder. The boss, the main villain, the dude in the wheelchair, spoilers. I thought he was okay, and I thought that the twist, I wasn't like. I'll get more into that in the story, but I thought he was okay. The son was okay. The Ditto, the person that was playing the Ditto. Spoilers: Ditto turned into people.
Yeah.
The Ditto I thought was portrayed well because I didn't see it coming.
Right, I didn't see it coming. I noticed the first time Ditto transformed into the guy who pushed the wheelchair, but like right before when there were the two sons, the son fell out of the closet and then the other son was there, and that was right before they revealed he was Ditto. I think I said out loud, I don't know how loud I said it, I'm like, it's Ditto! And I was just like, oh man, did I say that out loud?
Oh, alright, big people, yeah. Story-wise though, getting to the story, I thought, again, I haven't seen the entirety of Detective Pikachu, but from a non-biased standpoint of watching the game, or watching the movie, I thought it was okay story. I thought the storyline was pretty cool, introducing, showing off, like, Mewtwo as, like, the main Pokemon villain-ish kind of thing. It was weird, because he wasn't the villain.
Right.
When he was built up to be.
It was kind of a callback almost to the Pokemon in the first movie, because, whenever you have Mewtwo, you have to have him breaking out of a lab and destroying it.
Yeah.
And
I thought, when they were showing the experiments, I thought that was, like, referencing the clones from that movie, but then they went a different direction, and I'm like, I was a little disappointed, but at the same time, I was like, huh.
Well, like, they established that they made, like, a mention when they were going back through the archives, like, Mewtwo escaped from Kanto almost 20 years ago, and we have to find him, so, like, boy, poor Mewtwo, just, like, he was born, basically, in a test tube, and then he's, like, shoved back in there to do experiments on. Like, I just want to live my life, man.
I thought the R at first was, like, Pokerus. At least I thought it was, because it was purple, right? R, Pokerus. I thought maybe that was it, and, like, they were going all crazy because they were getting, like, stronger because that's what Pokerus is apparently supposed to do.
You know what? You know what it reminds me of, actually, now you mentioned that, because they used Mewtwo's essence to make it, and it makes the Pokemon more aggressive, but they lose their free will, and it reminds me of, like, I don't know if this is an item anymore, but the Berserk gene, where I think it was if you traded your Gen 1 Mewtwo over to Gen 2, it would be holding the Berserk gene, and I think it like, maximizes your attack but confuses you.
Wow.
So, it seems like that.
Would make sense, yeah. That would make sense. Yeah. That might actually be what it was. We may never know.
We never know.
The ending... I don't know, the ending, I'm getting ahead of myself here, but the ending, I couldn't tell if they were trying to leave it open-ended where he's like, maybe I'll give detective work a try, and I'm gonna live with you now, or if it was just like, end of story.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a little, it kind of ended a little abruptly compared to the pacing everything else was going, so, I mean, it could open itself up. I mean, I'd have to go if I went and finished the game and see if that ends. Like, if they maybe they make a sequel to the game, but
right. I thought the main villain putting his own mind inside the Mewtwo was kind of weird, but I also thought it was an interesting concept.
Yeah.
And like just with the Pokemon experiments in general, and then like the giant freaking Torterra, I was like,
that was visually amazing. It took so long though, because they were talking about the Torterra, and then as soon as the Earth started moving, I thought it's gonna be Torterra. It's gonna be, and then it took so long, and I'm like, well, maybe it's not. And then all of a sudden, they're like, that's an eye. I'm like, oh.
I was doing the same because they're like giant Torterra. They look normal size to me. I'm like, there's gonna be a giant Torterra somewhere later on, isn't there?
Right.
It's foreshadowing. And then the Earth was moving. I'm like, that's a Torterra.
Oh.
And then, like, it was taking, like the same thing with me. It was taking so long. I'm like,
is it? Right.
And then there was like 4 of them, and I'm like, what? I was expecting like twice the size, not
not the entire continent.
the island. Like, what the heck? And then I think they just did that to show that they can do that, because they just went, huh? Okay, back to sleep. They didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Except hit Pikachu in the head with a rock by accident.
Right.
Like, that was so weird. I was like, oh, what are they gonna do?
Yeah.
I was like,
I mean, I guess there wasn't too much.
Giant Torterra.
I guess there wasn't too much they could have done without completely disrupting the entire area, because they were the entire area. Like, then the lab would have sunk into the bottom of the water or something.
I was thinking, like, because they're talking about the experiments, and they were talking about like making them stronger and all this stuff. I'm like, Mega Evolution?
Yeah, true.
Maybe?
But like, Ash Greninja, except there's no Ash, so...
Yeah, there's no Ash. By the way, did you catch the, I think it was in the beginning or whatever, someone, I think it was the main character, was talking about, like, Pokemon battles, or it was the main villain who was doing the monologue thing, talking about, like, Pokemon battles. There was the stadium thing, and I think Red was there, and he got a Pokeball.
Oh, well, I did see they had the trainers with the Pokeball. I didn't make the connection.
The first dude was like, the red and white hat, the red and white jacket. I was like...
Yeah, well, I'm sure... Actually, yeah, I'm sure the outfit was a reference there. It could have... Maybe it was supposed to be red.
It might be. If I get it on DVD, I'll have to watch it back and be like, is it red?
Right, pause it right there.
I thought it was cool. I thought it was cool. Just, the story was very, very interesting for what it was. Because my brother, this is where that comes in later. My brother, who has played the game and stuff, he said, the villain changed. I was like, That some things changed about it, and then I was thinking, why'd they do that? And then it made sense in my head, like, if you've already played the game and you're going to watch this movie, it's not going to be enjoyable because you're going to know everything that happened.
Yeah, they would have had to change. It made sense why they changed some things.
Yeah. So then the people are like, I'm just basically seeing the game in real life graphics, and then they can sit there and be pleasantly surprised, like, oh,
yeah, that's why it'd be interesting to see if even if the motivations are different or something like that, because the villain here was kind of like, it was one of those where he starts off with this seemingly altruistic goal, but then he gets so overly absorbed by it that he just goes crazy with it, and he's like, this is gonna be a good thing, and so then he forces this good thing onto everybody, and causes total chaos.
And the one thing I was confused about was they were like, we can only become one when they're in this berserker weird mode, but Mewtwo put the dad into Pikachu without that. Well, and I was like, but
Mewtwo,
you didn't need to.
Mewtwo had some Deus Ex Machina a couple of times where he I mean, and it's Mewtwo, and we've seen him, in the anime, he was able to just massively erase people's memories from the sky. So, I mean, I guess he can just do stuff. So, he just got rid of the balloons, and he just, undid everything, so he just had, a rewind button. I mean, I guess it's one of those things you just have to kind of, okay, Mewtwo's the strongest thing there is, And
Which is the strongest Pokemon.
But that's kind of where, like, with the ending, the whole last part was a little bit rushed, I thought, because it wasn't clear why. Like, okay, so obviously Tim's dad was gonna die, so he put his mind into Pikachu to save him. That made sense to some extent, but then why did you need Tim in order to resurrect the dad?
I never understood.
Unless he needed his
explained.
DNA or something, like,
I don't know.
Right,
that was never explained.
That part was...
Because Mewtwo's like, you brought the sun just as planned. I'm like, okay, what's the plan? Waiting the rest of the movie to find out what it was, and then comes the ending, I'm like, why'd you need him?
Right, like, that part was
confused.
That part was weird, and again, it would be interesting to play the game and see if that is explained any better or any differently, and see maybe the game has more backstory for that because they have more time.
Yeah, it was just very, very weird, and I wasn't sure, because again, I haven't seen the game, so I wasn't sure what the plot was going to be remotely like, or like, what was going to go on. I just knew it was like, detective, and it's a Pikachu that can talk.
Yeah.
See what happens. And then they opened up with the Mewtwo thing, and I was like, what's going on? What's happening?
Right.
We got Mewtwo now. Alright. I'm gonna touch on my last thing here.
Alright.
Pacing. I wasn't a huge fan. At the time I was watching it, and this is with every movie I watch, at the time I was watching it, I don't really take too much into account of pacing, unless it's like a rushed ending, like you were saying, and I'm just like, what? That makes no sense. Okay. Unexplained things. But thought it was a little fast. It seemed like they were trying to cram in so many different genres into one thing.
Yeah.
Because you hardly... I don't know if you recall back and just think, like, or think back or recall it, or maybe if I'm the only one, but if you just recall, like, how long you stayed in one place or one area. Not that long. I think the longest place that was stayed at was either the apartment or the testing island area.
Yeah,
place.
I think they probably spent the most time in the lab, because I even remember thinking, and maybe it was because you could see them, like, opening up the Greninja containers or whatever, and then a lot of stuff happened after that, but I noticed, like, they spent a lot of time going through the archives. I noticed that, and the other thing I did notice was, I think because they were trying to represent Pokemon from all 7 generations inside this world, they did spend a lot of time trying to make sure you see, oh, like, there's that Pokemon, there's that Pokemon, and which I don't think it took away much from what was going on, but I just remember getting that feeling like, they were trying to make sure they got, they were meeting like a quota of references and species of Pokemon, and they had to get all the generations in there, and so, I mean, they were probably trying to fit a lot into a short runtime, and again, condensing the game, again, they changed a lot, but like the potential source material could have hours and hours of content to boil down into a roughly 2-hour movie.
Yeah, they just had a lot of elements which made the pacing kind of rough, but I don't think it hindered the movie very much. It didn't like hinder the story in any way. It was just
I mean, it didn't really make it less enjoyable or anything. I don't think.
Yeah, it was just one of those things where it's like, maybe if the movie was a little longer, like maybe 2 hours runtime or something, we might be able to see, maybe focus more on the surrounding area or something.
They could have maybe set it up a little more calmly and closed it out, explaining a little bit more.
Yeah. I forgot to mention this back when I was talking about actors, but when they were like hiding the face of the dad every time with like a flashback, I'm like, we know who it is. Why are you doing this?
Right, it's right. They're trying every time. They're setting this up for the reveal, and
but I was starting to think about it. I'm like, and I'm torn on if they just like thought we were dumb, or like if it was secretly ingenious. Because halfway through the movie when they were doing that, I'm like, are they gonna reveal Ryan Reynolds as just the Pikachu voice actor and as a different actor?
Well,
for
that's
the dad?
see,
Is
that's
that
what
what's
I was
going on?
wondering, because
And then it was Ryan Reynolds, and I'm like, why'd you hide his face, man?
well, that's what I was wondering too, and like, because I was trying to think like, well, what's the dad gonna look like? Because like I mean, obviously they cast people who are not related to pretend to be related. But like you look at Tim and then you saw his mom and then you're like, okay, well could the dad look like Ryan Reynolds? Maybe he could, but do they look enough alike?
I'm not trying to get into not bad territory for such a channel, but you know, I'm not trying to be that guy, but I was just like, would that work? Like,
well, I was wondering if there was a little bit intentional, like in a good way to kind of throw you off, like you wouldn't just assume, oh, that guy, that kid looks just like Ryan Reynolds, so he's gonna be his son, and you'd be like, could that maybe, and that's what I was thinking the whole time. I'm like, yeah, it could be, but like that's why I was thinking, even if the Pikachu was the dad, which is what I kind of thought the whole time, I thought, well, maybe it's a different actor and this is just the Pikachu voice. But then it was him, and I'm like, oh.
Okay.
It was kind of funny. I have to admit, it's kind of funny seeing him at the end, like making him look like a dad, and I'm just like, that's Wade Wilson.
Yeah, I will say I haven't. Again, I didn't play the games, but like when they were starting off because I didn't know much about it, I just knew the Pikachu could talk, and I was like, okay, why can the Pikachu talk? Oh, it's his old partner. Oh, that's the dad. I immediately was like.
Right, that was kind of what I thought as I played the game, because I didn't get. I'm trying to remember how far I got in the game. I don't think it was far enough that there were really too obvious of hints, but just from things that they would tell you, and you're like, this is probably his dad because he was with him in the crash, and he has the hat and and so I mean, it wasn't too. So I was more interested in learning how it happened. Which we did get an explanation for, and that's why I'm curious if the game has the same or similar explanation.
I will also say that weird hologram room stuff. I was like, what the heck?
I mean, it was cool. It was cool looking, but
it was cool. But at the same time, like, the only footage they had really was the street cam, right? And then this dude's just like, I see everything based on a street cam of only the bridge and not down there. And then I'm like, do you have hidden cameras down there?
Yeah.
Like, what?
Of course, they kind of suggested when Pikachu realized that Greninja stars were there. He kind of hinted that maybe the image wasn't totally. It was manipulated, and it wasn't a recording. Like it omitted stuff, so it was a recreation. But then again, it must have recorded some of it because it showed Mewtwo doing the thing, and
the mind wipe thing. And that, I guess it would make sense if you think, he's the main villain, this was his facility, he probably has secret cameras everywhere, I guess. And
well, the facility had a lot of cameras they showed.
Yeah, that's true, so like, I don't know, that just seemed like a straight retcon for me, but I was just like, I guess I'll run with it. Also, it's like, it just kind of showed off the technology of the Pokemon world, but I was also sitting there thinking, is Pokemon World advanced for this kind of technology yet?
I don't know, I mean, I guess
granted, we've seen a lot of things in the games, like giant ice lasers from a flying pirate ship, but like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, granted, this is a world where it is a common item that could be owned by everybody. A small sphere that takes matter, turns it into energy, preserves it, and can turn it back into matter in its exact same state. So I guess we're working with some pretty advanced technology here.
That is true. Yes, so.
Giant hollow camera is probably more realistic.
That's all I had to say from like my point, but like, I guess we can get on to like
Yeah, so
ending thoughts.
just real quick before we close off,
where
just
we think we're gonna get the movies.
what do you think? Because I've heard, and I wish I had pulled up the story so I could get the exact thing, but I've heard that there are already more. I wanted to say it was two or three live-action Pokemon movies in the works, and I don't know if they mentioned. Again, I don't know if this is true. One of them supposedly based on the story of the main series games for Red and Green, supposedly.
That might be
and
cool.
One, I wanted to say they said one was a Mewtwo-based movie, but this one almost already was, so
yeah,
I don't know.
This one kind of already was.
So I don't know, and I don't know how much truth there is to that, but what I've heard is that there are already movies in the works, and whether they're supposed to all share a universe, I don't know, since the trend of the day is to try to do a cinematic universe.
Apparently, listen, we're gonna get Pokemon and Sonic universe confirmed.
Smash Bros. Cinematic universe. This is the first
Smash
two
Bros.
movies.
Cinematic universe. We're gonna get Mario and Luigi. And
Well, isn't there is an animated Mario movie? I think. Granted, it's not live action, but it is. I don't know. I heard about. Was it Illumination Entertainment was gonna make? I don't know.
Oh, yeah,
it's one of those things you keep hearing about, and then like you're never sure if it's true until you actually see it. Like I didn't know that the Sonic movie was gonna be. I didn't know that the Detective Pikachu movie was gonna be real until I saw the trailer.
I didn't either. I didn't hear like any pre-hand news that's like speculation. They were just like, "Hey, look at these trailers." I'm like,
here it is.
What the heck? Where did these come from? Okay. Jeez.
So I was gonna mention like what does this say about how to make at least an enjoyable video game movie, which I think part of what we already touched on was have a specific story to adapt. That helps.
Yeah. Have at least a baseline, that story that people do know, but don't be afraid to change it a little bit just to keep people guessing and have an interesting story. But don't pull a Smurf on people. Don't pull a Smurfs on people. It's like
the cliche.
Interesting, amazing world.
Right.
Put them in New York.
Right, like which has been a trope.
Which
has been a trope since I guess like the 80s or 90s. Take cartoon or other fictional character and put them in regular Earth. Like, can we just do something in universe? And yes, that takes more work if it's live action because you have to adapt live action real world to fantasy world, but can be done.
What people need to remember is these characters. These characters are designed for this world, not our world.
Right. Oh, hello. Anyway, so what was the other thing? I was thinking of some other takeaway we could get from this. The faithfulness to the source material, like, okay, again, and I think. No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, not to pick on Sonic anymore. No, I'm gonna say something good about Sonic, I swear. They've been tweeting, and people have been all over the internet because I don't know if you've heard about this, but like they listened to the community and they said, okay, you guys don't like the Sonic design. We'll change it. So they're changing the Sonic design before release. And everyone's hoping it's at least an improvement.
Now, I will say, during the previews tonight, they still had the same Sonic trailer.
It's probably because they don't have a new trailer yet.
Right, but I mean, like, they didn't feel like pulling it or anything. So I guess, I mean, they're still...
They still have to market.
They got, I mean... It's almost a win for them anyway, because the design being so bad that it was a meme probably helped them get attention. So it's a win. They either win out by like making people happier with better design, or they win out because like, hey, it was so bad that it was a phenomenon.
It was accidentally a smart marketing.
Right.
It was accidentally smart marketing because there was the bad design in the meme, and then they said, all right, we'll make it more, what's the word? I can't remember the word. More closer to the original.
Yeah, more. Yeah.
Can't think of the actual word.
So I think what we have is have a story for a good video game movie. Have a story, a concrete story. Keep the characters in universe. Stay in your fictional universe, and show that you understand the source material.
I think Sonic will get a pass on that because most of his games do technically take place in an Earth designed environment. So.
Yeah, so Sonic's one of the more passable ones, but
we're not here to talk about Sonic.
Anyway,
but I think Detective Pikachu hopefully will open up more like good video game movies.
Yeah.
Like more accurate to previous design from the game and such. But I will say, I hope I'm being invaded. Those gremlins. I will say, I do want to see more. I do want to see what they do with the. Now that they've shown they can pull this off Pokemon. And I will just reiterate the tweet I posted the other day. Mystery Dungeon movie for the love of God.
And
I need it.
And I was going to add to that, now with Detective Pikachu, if they want to make a shared universe out of it, they have one explanation or a precedent for human mind inhabiting a Pokemon body. So it could be the perfect follow-up. And Mystery Dungeon have been such story-heavy games. I mean, Mystery Dungeon, because
there's
it takes
so
place...
much to work with. There's so many Mystery Dungeon games now that if they couldn't think of a story design, there was all hope is lost.
Yeah, they're so story-heavy. Now, granted, again, they'd have to take the story and boil it down into movie amount of time.
Yeah.
And it would be maybe more suitable to be fully animated because now you're working with 0 human characters unless they wanted to tie it in to show memories. Yeah. Almost Lego movie style where the main movie is animated and then they have flashbacks to the main character has flashbacks to the human world if they wanted to do it that way.
Well,
so
in the games, it's always assumed like humans. At first, when I was playing in the OG games, I was like, are humans just not a thing? But then like as I got older and stuff, I was like, reading the text better, and it's like they're like, oh, human, but like they clearly know in the games what a human is.
Right, they know.
So where are the humans? That's always been my question.
It's just
Maybe
like
they can.
Unless these are like Pokemon in the wild and they form their own communities in the wild, they're just really far from any humans.
They might have their own little island.
But then there's clearly to me it's implied that there's like dimensional travel going on there, rather than just geographical.
Yeah.
But anyway, but then again, you're the player character as a human almost always like had Pokemon, so they're still in the Pokemon universe. So maybe it is just like this is a part of the world, the Pokemon world, that's just far away from any humans. But anyway,
might just be.
So anyway, that could be. There's plenty of source material if they wanted to go that way. I don't know if because I haven't heard of any announcements for more Mystery Dungeon games, so I don't know if maybe they're dying down on that. But, if they wanted to try to reinvigorate that would be some good material there.
Pretty great, yeah. Might give us some more games. The other option they might have is like Pokemon Rangers. Those are a thing.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the spin-off games have more story going on than most of the main RPGs.
Yeah, because they're trying to be different from the main RPGs. Because main RPGs are for, they're competitive. They're, open world explorer. But the side games are always just more.
And the main RPGs, like some of them have interesting stories to them, but they're more about having a blank slate character, and every adventure is your own unique adventure. It's your own personal adventure. Whereas in the spin-off games, even though, yes, everybody can play it a little bit differently, you're playing a character with a more established personality, you have dialogue, you're not just a silent protagonist in pretty much all of the spin-off games. So it's more narrative style, it's more something that you could adapt to a movie.
I mean, the main games do have a story, but they do it in a way that integrates you as a player into the story. Right. But in the side games, it's always, oh, here, watch this essentially TV show.
Right.
Which is fine, which is good. Nice change of pace.
Alright, so I
think... We probably went over that 30 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, a little bit. I can't see my timer, but I think we pretty much covered what we needed to cover, though.
Yeah.
So, if you haven't seen it already, even though you've been spoiled on most of the major stuff, but you should see it anyway. It's a good time.
It's so good.
It's a good video game movie. By video game movie standards, I think it sets the bar. Which I know it was a low bar.
Video games to finally be good.
It was a really low bar before, but I think it's a pretty good bar now. And, yeah, so, and if you like this kind of discussion stuff, let us know, we can do more. We haven't had any new Pokemon trailers, like, gameplay trailers to discuss.
They are hiding Sword and Shield now.
Which might be cool for the best, but then on the other hand, doesn't give us much to talk about in the meantime. But, we'll see.
I mean, Alola, I don't know, I'm always torn, because Alola, you know, I got to look forward to things. I was like, oh, I want that Pokemon, I want that Pokemon. But at the same time, I was like...
Then you knew everything.
I now know the entire game.
Right. Well, the problem was, it was great for building up the hype before you got the game. Then once you got the game, it wasn't as good of an impact. X and Y might have done a better balance. They still showed you a lot, but they left a few things open.
Yeah, I honestly think they're just gonna start. They're just trying the route of like, we will tell them nothing.
Yeah.
But the trailer and the first stage starters.
I don't necessarily mind that. I mean that if they keep it like that, if they literally give us no more information, or maybe like I feel like we have to get if the legendaries are gonna be on the box art, like they'll have to show us the legendaries. But if they just left it at that, I think it would be interesting. Then we get to go in almost completely blind. So we'll see what they do. Yeah. But we do have a few more months still if they want to reveal stuff. But man, Sun and Moon trailers were coming out every 2 weeks, so...
Every 2 weeks. I wouldn't mind at least seeing the entire starter stage evolution, or at least the final evolutions. That would be fantastic. I have so many high expectations for these mons, and I really don't feel like being let down.
Yeah. We'll see. I think I'll be happy if they don't reveal more, even though it'll be tough to wait, and I'll be happy to know a little bit more. Just not too much more, but a little bit more. Anyway, if that happens, we'll try to put a video together about that. And
we'll talk about it.
Yeah. Alright, so in the meantime, guys, like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Thanks to AJ for joining to have this little discussion. And whenever next time is, we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
You'll probably only see me on the next solo, but goodbye.
Or discussion. Alright.
Whichever comes first.
Yeah. But for now, goodbye, everybody.
Adios, amigos.